Welcome to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Be warned, the discussions in this podcast may contain detailed spoilers. For spoiler-free reviews of newly released films, be sure to check out our show on our YouTube channel. Enter at your own risk and enjoy the show. Chosen from among all others by the immortal elders Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, Mercury, Joey Darlington and his mentor David travel the highways and byways of the land on a never-ending mission to right wrongs caused by Michael Bay, to develop understanding of films with actual subtitles, and to seek justice for all movies still owned by Sony. In a time of dire need, young Joey has been granted the power by the immortals to summon awesome forces by the utterance of 3 single words. Reviews without remorse!
Say our name, and we shall unleash the poignance of Siskel, the bluntness of Ebert, the quips of Malton, and the mustache of Shallot. Reviews without remorse! I am David, and I wish to grow a mustache just like Gene Shalit. And with me is the spirit of Siskel and Ebert, Joe.
What's happening, partner?
Not much, man. Well, a little much, but we'll get to that. This is episode 112. Holy moly. And in this show, we will discuss not a lot, but, interesting stuff, I'm hoping. The questionably conceived Joker movie gets a trailer. Grab the pitchforks. We discuss. And then, DC's latest attempt at starting a franchise. We review Shazam! What's up, partner?
How's it going, my friend?
Not too bad, not too bad. I gotta tell you, I am looking forward to discussing Shazam, but there's this part of me that's kind of also interested in hearing about Joker with you, so maybe we should just get into it.
Let's bring it on.
Arthur, does it help to have someone to talk to?
My mother always tells me to smile and put on a happy face. She told me I had a purpose to bring laughter and joy to the world. Hey, stop them! Is it just me? Or is it getting crazier out there?
Okay, so now bear with me. I didn't hate it.
Okay. There's a ringing endorsement so far.
Well, dude, I've been the biggest, hater of this project since it was first conceived. Even when, Scorsese got involved as a producer and stuff like that, I was like, what the hell? It wasn't changing anything for me. The initial makeup comes out, and I'm like, what the hell? You were there for that, and you and your costume commanderness was kind of, iffy. Yeah. But now that I've seen this whole thing in context, first of all, can I just say, I appreciate that they didn't do some jazzed up version, some modern rockish version of Smile. They instead had Jimmy Durante's version of Smile. Am I the only one that feels like I'm kind of glad that they did that?
No, I'm with you so far, sure.
Oh, I knew this was going to be good. Life was a tragedy. I liked his laugh, and I still am not convinced that their deconstruction of Joker needs to be done, but I kind of see where they're going, and I'm not completely against it. This isn't like last week where I was saying I'm going to see Child's Play because Mark Hamill is doing the voice of Chucky. This is more along the lines of maybe it won't be quite as gut-wrenchingly awful as I originally thought it was going to be. I still think it's probably a bad idea. It's definitely giving me some vibes of The Killing Joke meets Taxi Driver. But I don't know. I've kind of gone from not a chance in hell to kind of, I didn't hate it. And you're right. It's not a ringing endorsement, but there are some elements in there that Joaquin Phoenix is doing that kind of convinced me that I almost wish they had skipped the entire origin movie and just made him the Joker.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I'll tell you what, it's funny. I had sort of a similar feeling from this. Honestly, I think that what I sort of keep going back to is this wouldn't be such a bad movie if they just didn't call it the Joker.
Yeah.
I feel like, like you said, this is kind of like Taxi Driver and Clown Face. Honestly, had they separated this out from the Joker and just called it something totally random and had no connection to DC whatsoever, you might have an interesting movie on your hands. As it stands, I kind of don't know what I'm really looking at and what I'm really feeling about it. I kind of feel like it's got nothing. I mean, put it this way. I don't at all watch this and think to myself that Batman could turn around the next corner.
You know what? That is actually a very good point. Think of it in that respect. No, this is very much a self-contained looking movie with little hints of, oh, look, this is Gotham City, or in this case, New York in the 70s. That's what I was getting the vibe from. It really... Yeah, I feel like it's almost... I almost feel like this would be a great character study if it wasn't the Joker. I kind of am agreeing with you on that.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, right. I just feel like the loose connection, if any, to DC and to Batman is where nothing makes sense about this. Otherwise, it probably would be a perfectly serviceable movie.
Yeah. And it's kind of a shame. I really was kind of thinking to myself, I'll give credit where credit is due. It went from not a snowball's chance in hell to at least, okay, I get where you're going. So I guess that's something. I guess they should be thankful for that.
I guess. I mean, I feel like this is something I would watch just out of curiosity, but not in any way would I be watching this thinking like, oh, wow, is this going to lead into a Batman movie? Because I don't think they're even trying to make a connection, frankly.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
Yeah.
Well, there it is. There's our milquetoast review of the Joker trailer. I mean, that is pretty much where we are. We are just so...
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, I want to grab the pitchforks, but I'm kind of like, I don't know if it's worth it.
Yeah, it is what it is, and we'll see what happens.
Billy Batson, I choose you as champion. Say my name so my powers will become yours. Shazam.
Wait, for real?
Say it, okay? Say my name. Shazam!
We all have a superhero inside us. It just takes a bit of magic to bring it out. In Billy Batson's case, by shouting out one word, Shazam! This streetwise 14-year-old foster kid can turn into the grown-up superhero Shazam. Written by Henry Gayden, story by Henry Gayden and Darren Lemke, based on the characters created by Bill Parker and C.C. Beck, directed by David F. Sandberg. Shazam!
Shazam! It's finally here. The other Captain Marvel, kinda, sorta.
The not legally viable Captain Marvel, due to some shenanigans. Do you know the story, by the way, of the shenanigans behind that?
Oh yeah, I do. Yeah.
Okay, for the audience, basically, Shazam came out, was originally called Captain Marvel, got sued by DC. DC won and got the rights for the character, and DC at the time just shelved the character. And after a while, the copyright expired, so Marvel kind of took advantage of that and created a character named Captain Marvel, so they couldn't use it. Ta-da!
And then DC decided to dust him off, bring him back, but now he's just called Shazam because they can't call him Captain Marvel.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But the real question is, Joe, what'd you think of it?
What did I think of it? Well, I think it's probably pretty obvious. This is a very enjoyable film for damn sure.
Yes.
I would think that most people would have a hard time saying that it's not. I enjoyed all of it, and I was very surprised at. Not surprised that it's good, but surprised that they were able to keep it pretty consistent. I was kind of waiting for them not so much to drop the ball and become a bad movie. But there were moments where I noticed they were dancing very close to the line of being a little adultish. Was kind of wondering, are they going to cross that line? Do they get no? But they kept it very consistent, and this is front to back, top to bottom, a competent film. They didn't, they had a vision and they stuck with it. And I went in very, I wouldn't say skeptical, but I just didn't know how good is this going to be? How good can this be? But I was pretty impressed with it. I thought they did a pretty damn good job, quite frankly. We'll get into details, but overall, it's a very, very serviceable film. I enjoyed all of it. I was actually surprised at how many of the original comic elements they managed to get into this film, frankly. And I almost get nervous, like, boy, where are they going to go from here? But, we'll discuss it. So, my friend, how about you?
I had a blast with this movie. I did. I laughed. I found myself emotionally connected to, surprisingly, nearly all the characters. Yeah, the two bully guys in the truck were very Stephen King bullies type characters, but that's okay. I could have dealt with that. The plot worked very, very well. The emotional aspect of it, I felt, worked very, very well. The acting across the board, whether it was the young person or the old person, I thought was okay. I had a little problem with Zachary Levi, but it's really nitpicky more than anything else. But we'll get to that. And yeah, I highly recommend this movie. I had a great time. It's still very comic booky, but yet managed to be its own thing and tell a story that maybe not many people know. And managed to fit in so many elements of the comic that I actually had to look it up. It's like, is that actually in the... Holy smokes, that's actually in the comic. Holy moly.
Yeah.
Wow. That was kind of
honestly,
impressive.
I felt like when you got into real weirdness, chances are it was in the comic, and that's sort of why I was there.
Yeah, pretty much. Which we're not going to spoil right now because this is the beginning where we always try to talk in generalities just to give the audience the idea, hey, should we see this? We're saying you should see this.
And bring your kids.
But definitely bring your kids. It's enjoyable. It's a fun...
Yeah.
It's actually kind of a family movie. Who knew?
It's a great family movie, actually. Yeah. I think it's... again, we'll get into it, but that's one of the things that really surprised me about this. It's sort of a family movie on multiple levels, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And yeah, boy, did it work. It was really terrific. I think a lot of people will really gravitate towards this film. It's got heart and soul. And that's, the missing piece for a lot of these DC movies.
I agree.
Movies in general.
Honestly, at this point, I hate to say it, but like Endgame, it's got its game cut out for it after this movie. Right now, this is my favorite comic book movie of the year so far.
Well, I'm not that worried, but again, it is a great movie, but I also did feel like it's not the kind of film I would compare to,
You know what I'm saying. It really can't compare to something that has 10 years of story building up to it. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. But again, it sort of swings. It's almost like a film that is swinging for a double and kind of surprises itself with a triple. Yeah.
That's an interesting analogy. And you know what? Now that we're going to get into the spoiler discussion, let's get into some detail about it.
Let's do it.
So, the caterpillar is the ruler of the 7 realms, huh?
Wow, and that's from the comics.
It is from the comics, yes.
When I saw that, I was just like, I didn't know it was from the comics until afterwards, but as soon as I saw that, I kind of went, oh, that's gotta be from the comics, because I swear to God, I'm saying to myself, by the time Shazam 2 comes along, we're going to have a talking tiger.
Gosh, I hope so. Honestly,
I mean,
the only thing that really surprised me more than anything else, I was actually surprised there wasn't a surprise cameo from The Rock. Because when the credits started rolling, the first name that popped up is produced Dwayne Johnson. And that's because The Rock, Dwayne Johnson, whatever you want to call him, I don't give a crap. But he is slated to play Shazam's number one villain, Black Adam. We've talked about it. He's been slated to play this for so damn long that it's kind of become a joke with us. Now this movie's come out, I guess we're going to see Black Adam. But yeah, I saw his name as part of the executive producer at the end, and I thought, oh boy, maybe we're going to get a cameo from him. And instead, we got a very Marvel-esque set of closing credits, down to the Ramones as the closing song, just like out of Spider-Man, the half-credit scene that is an integral plot that'll be played out later in the films, and then a joke credit all the way at the end. Like, seriously.
Which was almost Deadpool-ish.
Yeah. Extremely Deadpool-ish.
You know, it's funny, too, because honestly, as you're kind of refreshing my memory, all I heard for years, as soon as they said Shazam, they went, and The Rock is going to play Black Adam. Yeah. And it's all we heard for the better part of years, I think.
Pretty much.
So it wasn't until years later it's like, oh, this other guy's gonna play Shazam, by the way, and I'm like, who's that? Yeah, no, I don't know who he was, whatever. Didn't know anything about it, but all we knew was like, oh, The Rock. So yeah, that's the one thing we did not get in this film,
which surprised me a little bit. But you know what? But you know what else surprised me? Hey. Let's talk for a minute, ladies and gentlemen, about inclusion. Let's talk a minute about the... what's the other word I'm looking for, Joe? I can't remember it off.
Diversity?
Diversity! There's the word! Let's...
And I thought I was going to be the one. Go ahead.
Nope. I'm bringing it up because, let me tell you something, ladies and gentlemen, not a single trailer mentioned a single thing about the sidekicks. And in the end, that's what they became, was sidekicks. Straight out of the comic sidekicks. Which, by the way, bless the marketing of this movie for not spoiling that before the movie came out. I was elated when that happened. Like, really, like, genuinely surprised and happy when that happened.
I would agree. I was very impressed, first of all, that most of the things that were in the trailer, I would say, were the first half of the film.
Yeah, pretty much.
First third, first half. With a few shots here and there, a few of the money shots, later on. But plot-wise, yeah, I thought most of this, if not all, the second half. I mean, once the plot got moving, that was all pretty new. The only thing I really knew was Dr. Savannah was the bad guy, but that's it.
My point that I was trying to make about inclusion and diversity is here we have an inclusive and diverse cast. And you know why it worked? Because each of the characters had great moments on their own without overpowering or the main plot or anything like that, became part of the plot line organically, and they didn't shine a huge spotlight on it like, look how good we are. This is my problem with the terms inclusion and diversity. When you put a spotlight on it, it's like you're justifying it. This movie didn't feel it had to justify it. It just did it. And it was beautiful the way it was. I had zero problem with the casting at all.
I will agree with you 100%. And honestly, I sort of walked out thinking to myself, boy, that was sort of a stroke of luck that the Shazam character actually had the Shazam family, which probably just even shy of a couple of years ago, they would never have touched. But today, they kind of looked at it and went, wait a second, not only am I going to use that, but that's exactly what I need to appeal to the diversity crowd. And they had a very well-balanced, diverse crowd. I mean, they really had all the bases covered. They had young, old, chubby, skinny, Asian, Spanish, etc. I mean, they really covered all the grounds. Even as far as to say that I believe one of them was a gay character, if you caught that.
Yeah, the Asian one, wasn't he?
The chunky one.
I'm sorry, the chunky one. Oh, my.
Yeah, was again a very throwaway line when they walked out of the strip club, and he just again the guy who hadn't spoken throughout the whole film goes, not my thing. So I was like, ding, one more. You thought we left out a gay character, but we got it.
But it didn't feel pandering. That was my thing.
Agreed.
It was done in a way that felt real.
Completely agreed. I agree. As much as I'm teasing and joking, I agree with that. It really did work with the story, the Foster family, all of that worked well, and frankly worked on multiple levels, because just the story, the theme of family works really well. And again, like you said, like other films would make it feel like an after school special. Not at all here. It works because again, it's his story about being an orphan and a foster child and living with a foster family, and understanding the value of that family versus the real family that he thinks he wants, that he had missed all along. I thought that worked terrific. So yes, I completely agree. Again, it was a great opportunity for the film to have a lot of inclusion and a lot of diversity, and so again, on one hand, why I'm kind of like the tiniest little eye roll of me, because I feel like they're always trying to jam that in there, but like you said, here it was organic. It completely worked with the story. So kind of like when we talked about Star Trek, and I said I loved the fact that Sulu was a gay character. Right. And Beyond, because there was a logic to it. There was a very organic feel to that, the way they did it. And I'm agreeing with you 100% that same thing here. It was totally organic and totally worked with the story and made it better.
And not only, and you mentioned the family part, what I loved is how they actually parallel with the hero and the villain about family. Dr. Savannah's got that, family that just treats him like crap, and he just strikes back in his own way. Billy Batson was brought up with no family and winds up with an adoptive family of sorts. And I just loved that little parallel, and I love the way that it played out in the movie. Mark Strong, first of all, that man could play menace by barely batting an eyelash. That man just lives menace. But I really liked the more subtle moments, like when he confronts his father in that scene in the boardroom. And
not what I would call subtle, but I get what you're saying.
Well, subtle in the respect that when he's first talking with him and everything like that, there's like a childlike desperation in the sound of his voice. Not that self-assured person that went and had no qualms about the woman slamming on the door after she found the 7 symbols 7 times or anything like that. There was you could just tell that he's still that broken little kid in the backseat of that car. And I liked that. I liked that he put that little bit of nuance in it, On the other hand, and a problem that I have with this movie, actually, is Zachary Levi's performance as Shazam. Because...
Really?
Well, hear me out. This is an interesting one. You have Asher Angel playing Billy Batson. And he doesn't play Billy Batson as an excitable type. He doesn't play him... He plays him as very reserved and cool, and I've lived on the streets and so on and so forth. It's like the director almost forgot to say, hey, either Asher or Zachary, you guys need to get together and figure out how you're doing this, because Shazam is basically just still Billy, but in a bigger body. But he didn't emulate any real traits of Billy. He was just, so excitable, and he's yelling and so on and so forth. And at no point in the movie did Asher portray Billy as being that way. At that point, it was all just, he was always very cool, and just kind of slick and I'm the smartest kid in the room and stuff like that. And because they didn't, it became a little jarring whenever Zachary Levi would come on. And listen, I'm not actually slamming the performance either. I loved the way he played the character. My problem is there felt a disconnect between the Batson character and the Shazam character. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, wholeheartedly. I'm not disagreeing with that at all. And I also sort of wonder where the fault lies. Yeah, you're right. There was definitely a disconnect. I would even go so far as to say that when you're watching the Billy Batson character, he's kind of so humorless that he's not fun to watch.
Yeah.
I mean, he's sympathetic. That part I got. So yeah, the kind of over the top, over the moon Shazam character who's now look what I can do. Right. It does feel a little off. And yeah, again, I don't know where the fault lies there, but it's hard to say. There's a part of me that wants to give it a pass because I'm sort of saying to myself, even a kid who is kind of humorless and miserable like Billy Batson, you all of a sudden blow him up with superpowers. Well, that'll cheer you up, and that'll sort of, So in that respect, it's almost kind of like the transition between Peter Parker and Spider-Man when, I mean, the whole gist of that character is that, well, once he puts his costume on and once he's anonymous, he can say or do as he pleases. He can be as free speaking as he wants and quippy and funny because now, he doesn't have no one knows who he is, so he's a whole different person. You could sort of make the same argument here. Again, I'm going to agree with you that there is a disconnect in the personalities. But again, I do sort of want to let it slide a little bit because, again, I say, like, well, again, even a miserable little whatever that he is, again, now he can fly and shoot lightning out of his hands. Yeah, why not? I'd be smiling.
I agreed. I'm talking about like his excitable, his little squeaky voice when he gets really excited and stuff like that and everything. I can understand the panic part of it. It's just that it's like they didn't take each other's characteristics into consideration. I'm going to kind of blame the director on that one, honestly. I think that he just let the actors do their own thing, and I don't know, maybe he made a choice not to have the two even meet. Because as far as I know, they don't share any screen time. Shazam and Billy Batson.
No, of course not, because, by nature they can't.
All right, and that might have been a director's choice. My choice would have been different. I would have made sure that the two of them got each other's... he had moments where it seemed like he had a little bit of Billy in him, but then there were just other moments that it just was like, wow, this is the guy from Chuck, pretending to be a 15-year-old boy.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I remember when Big came out. I remember hearing similar criticisms that it was almost like Tom Hanks was playing an even younger child than the child he was supposed to be.
Right.
Yeah, and I could see that. I don't. In fact, if I had to take a guess, I would say the director probably got him together with the other. They probably got Zachary Levi and the other kid there. Let's see how their dynamic is together. And Billy was sort of an afterthought.
Yeah.
Now we need somebody to play Billy Batson.
You mean Jack Dylan Grazer, the kid who played Freddy?
Yes.
Yes. Which, by the way, that's some good casting there. The kid not only was that kid good, but he had great chemistry with both of the characters.
Yeah, agreed. I thought he was terrific, and I liked the fact that wasn't there a version of the comic where Billy Batson was the gimp, the cripple, and I don't want to say cripple because I don't remember what the handicap was.
Politically correctness just thrown the hell out the window. We're celebrating this movie for its diversity done in a nice, proper way, and then you're going, the gimp. He's not a character from Pulp Fiction.
Should I edit that out maybe?
No. I mean, that's up to you. I'm doing the audio. You're doing the video. I'll figure it out. But,
okay.
No.
Because I didn't. I said it casually because I didn't know if that was. I wasn't sure if he had a permanent handicap versus just having a broken leg or something that was healing.
They don't really make that
I wasn't
very clear.
Sure.
They don't make that very clear.
That's,
well, I think
right.
that actually at one point he does mention, Freddy does mention that I wish I could have your powers. Look at me. So I feel like this is a more permanent condition that he has, which is why he wishes for the power that he eventually does get.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. That does make sense now that you say it.
So the general plot line follows the comic pretty closely. I wasn't expecting Djimon Hounsou as the wizard that gives him the power, because the trailers never alluded to who was the long hair. They just kind of showed this long hair person. You have to wonder if that was kind of a last minute inclusion or something like that.
Oh, I could tell from the voice in the trailers. I knew that was him.
Oh, you did? I didn't.
Oh, absolutely.
I had no clue. You have better ears than I do, sir.
Oh, I think he's got a very distinct voice, and honestly, I was pretty sure that I heard it mentioned a long time ago that he was going to play that part, that he was playing that part.
I missed it. Well, hey, nobody's perfect. In all told, you have a really strong cast across the board. In the foster parents, in Mark Strong, Zachary Levi, Asher Angel is the name of the person that plays Billy Batson, Jack Dylan Grazer. Then you have the kids, and we should give a little bit of credit to some of these kids, man.
Sure.
Especially the girl that plays Darla, Faith Herman, she was adorable. Come on,
I agree.
Tell me she didn't melt your little heart.
She was the Rudy Huxtable of the group. I thought, yeah, absolutely. She was there. She was there to be adorable, and she did it well.
Oh my goodness! Yes, she was. She was adorable, and I wanted to call her out because every time she was on the scene, I just found myself smiling. She's so cute. I want to adopt her. But she already has a family. So yes, the entire subject of the movie is the family. The entire origin story is told really, really well. I kind of feel like this is the weird part about all this, because here we are, we're talking about this, and we enjoyed it, and yet I'm trying to figure out, is there something I'm missing substance-wise? Because the story is very simple and yet has some subtext, but as I'm talking about it with you now I'm kind of like feeling like, am I missing something? Because it kind of feels very small. You know? There's not a lot of action in this movie.
Right, yeah, I would agree with that, and honestly, that's probably what I kind of was alluding to before when I said it was swinging for a double and kind of, inadvertently hit a triple.
Yeah, I feel that's a very accurate description.
I think it was a conscious decision by the filmmakers not to get Looney Tunes carried away. The whole arc is not going to come to an end if they don't win the day. Even though they kind of are sort of alluding to that, but it doesn't have that weight. I mean, again, it's not about the legions and legions under the sea who's going to take, assault against the people. No, it's just, again, it's one guy with a grudge, and he's got his minions, and his minions can be counted on 7 fingers. It's not armies and armies and armies of CGI people coming. So, yeah, I mean, the stakes were very reasonable. I mean, this had a much more Wonder Woman kind of a feel as opposed to an Aquaman kind of feel, and certainly not Batman v Superman feel. Yeah, again, like Man of Steel is trying very hard to make you say this is totally serious and we're not kidding. This one is saying we are kidding. We're having a good time and just shut up and enjoy it. So, yeah, I mean, they purposely keep the stakes and they keep the tone at a pretty reasonable level, and it works. So again, they're not trying to be, over the top and super duper serious. In fact, I will sort of lead into the idea that that's probably, and again, I'll go back to the first time I saw the first photo of this film, and I went, "Oh, they're doing the Greatest American Hero." Mm-hmm. I said this is going to be like definitely nailed it. And again, that's not a bad thing by any stretch.
No.
I think what they did with that idea, the fish out of water, the whole Tom Hanks and Big kind of a story, it works, and they play that perfectly. And I feel like they take that story and do as much with it. They go as far as they could go without getting overboard with things. So it really does work. So, I think if there's anything, like, I almost feel like this movie is almost above criticism. The only criticism I would have necessarily is that, well, maybe I wanted a little more serious Shazam. Maybe I wanted something that was a little more akin to something that would be a little more realistic and a little more grounded. But this is what we got. And I think they do this really well. And again, I remember seeing Shazam in a lot of the animated films. And they're great. They really do him well. So I almost feel like now that they've done this with Zachary Levi, that's pretty much how it's going to be going forward. So you're not really going to get, it's almost like when they do the post credits, by the way, spoilers, we're already in spoilers. But when Superman kind of shows up, it's almost like you sort of go, oh, wait a second. Like this really is in the same universe as Superman? Like it really kind of almost the tone, not the tone, but the world seems to shift a little bit, and you kind of go, oh wow, this really is in that world there. And I kind of feel like it was almost more of a like the cameo kind of felt more like a Deadpool cameo, where he's there, so yes, they're connected, but it's still kind of with a wink.
Yeah,
like we're not really gonna put them together because it wouldn't work exactly. But it was, first of all, it was a fun little cameo. But yeah, again, I felt like this story. I mean, all you had to do was see the costume, and you knew this was not going to be like a super serious superhero movie.
right.
So again, that would probably be the only thing I have as far as criticisms go is that they do kind of keep it just a very basic, simple story, and it works. They didn't swing for the fences. They're not swinging for that grand slam. So
Little side.
what they do is good.
A little side note, did you all notice that the music cue they used for Superman was not Hans Zimmer's music? No, it was John Williams.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. They can't not go back to greatness.
No.
They know what works.
Exactly. But in furthering what you said, I don't think that's actually... I talk about the smallness of it, and I'm not necessarily complaining about that. My thing has always been that in order to tell the story of these characters, you have to be true to them. You have to be true to who they are and where they came from. And you can't necessarily do that with bombast. You can do it maybe with established characters, but this isn't an established character. Same as the Guardians of the Galaxy weren't established characters when they first came out. Now we can't get away from them. But they needed to have their moment in the sun. And each one of the Guardians had their own little bit of a backstory, told briefly, but explained and given time to truly take root. Billy Batson's story really did need the full Megillah. And to be honest with you, one of the things I appreciate about this movie is, like you were just saying, maybe the stakes weren't that high. And maybe even though it's in a world where we know that Superman and obviously Batman exists, because that was totally Ben Affleck's batarang that he was holding on there. In a world where those exist, you're kind of like thinking, well, but on the other side of the coin, it's like, but this is kind of the trap that most superhero movies fall into. They fall into this situation where when the end comes, like, oh, we got to have the big, and it's got to be for the sake of the world and so on and so forth. It's like, well, the problem is that if you want this to be a franchise of movies, if you start off big, how do you keep growing the stakes from there? That's the cardinal mistake that most movies make. It's like we were saying about Star Trek. They brought in. I'm not saying that they couldn't have brought in Khan into the Kelvin timeline series at some point, but what I am saying is that they should have saved him for a really, really good moment. It shouldn't have been the second one. In the same way that as much as I love the Raimi movies, I still feel that they should have waited for the Green Goblin for like the second movie. Because that should be Peter Parker's like nemesis. This should be the big one, and it should get his own build-up. And the Amazing Spider-Man movie tried to do that, failed miserably, but that's a whole other story. Check our reviews. But here, they start off with a smaller, not really, I almost admire the courage of the movie to be able to okay, we're introducing a character that not many people know, and we're giving him a villain that I guarantee you barely anybody knows. It's gutsy that they went that way. They could have just come out of the gate. It's like, well, screw it. Get the Rock in there. Put him in a black costume, and we want our Black Adam right now. But they didn't. They're building up to it, and I'm glad that they're building up to it. Hell, there's even the tiniest possibility that they may not even get to Black Adam until a third Shazam. And frankly, if they did that, I will admire the ever-living hell out of this series if they did that.
Chosen from among all others by the immortal elders Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, Mercury, Billy Batson and his mentor travel the highways and byways of the land on a never-ending mission to right wrongs, to develop understanding, and to seek justice for all. In time of dire need, young Billy has been granted the power by the immortals to summon awesome forces at the utterance of a single word.
So, another thing that I wanted to mention was the fact that I appreciated that this film never really got into anything that was too dark, too grim, too adult. Because I noticed there were a lot of things. Well, I heard another reviewer make a comment that the tone of this film seemed to sort of be akin to the films in the 80s, which sort of brought on the PG-13, like the Gremlins and the Temple of Dooms, that, you know, kind of were teetering up, like tickling the edges of an R-rated, violent sort of a film without quite crossing that line. And I kind of felt like that's sort of where this film was too, because there was a lot of moments where you had like the strip club. They showed the strip club twice. There's some jokes about it, but you never saw the inside. And I'll just say, had this been directed by Michael Bay, well, I don't have to say anything more than that, do I?
Oh, no, you got a point there. Actually, if it had been directed by Zack Snyder, you just know there'd have been some silhouette in the background of the champagne room and two people just going at it.
There you go, and dead hookers flying all over the place.
Seriously, body parts everywhere or something like that. I don't know.
Right.
But
yeah, so I mean, things like that. The beer, when they go inside and they order the beer, like all that planning and, you know, to get it, just to walk outside and spit it out and then go back in and get junk food. So that again, that wholesomeness was there, and I really appreciated that. And then we get to see in the end with the Santa Claus who'd been kind of through the ringer, and he gets interviewed and he's dropping F-bombs, but they're all getting bleeped out. So again, I really like that the tone stayed very consistent, and it stayed something that you probably would have no problem bringing your, you know, under 13 child to see. The boardroom probably was the most violent part, and I heard somebody compare that to the operating table in Spider-Man 2.
Oh.
Like that's in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 2, there was like one really dark scene that again sort of showed you the evil, the villainy of the bad guy that we're going to fight. So that was, again, well done. Yes, we get it that he's a bad dude and he's capable of doing bad things. So you don't want to mess with him. So that was well done. But again, I was very happy that they didn't spoil it by getting into some really dark, grim stuff.
Honestly, I think the darkest thing in the entire thing was Superman's costume.
There you go.
And for what it's worth, the scene where the two of them, like, you're like, haha, we got the beers, and they drank them, spat them out. That was me the first time I drank beer, so I bought it.
Yeah, me not so much. I didn't have a problem with beer the first time, unfortunately.
The darkness, I think, you know, just the thing is that we got so like we got used to the Zack Snyder way of things. The grim, the not quite red, the kind of maroon color, the not quite blue, the navy or whatever the hell color blue. You know, like blue's already a dark color, and somehow he's like, no, we can go darker, and they do. And but the fact that they stayed away from that and still kept it grounded, you gotta admire that. You gotta admire that they had their vision. That they knew that they tacitly still had to be part of this extended universe, and yet still managed to maintain, maybe not a perfect balance. Maybe there's not really the actual connection between the two universes, other than like the name dropping and so on and so forth. And maybe it's somewhat hard to see them being connected. But honestly, who the hell cares? That universe is dead. That universe is not coming back. Okay? And I guarantee you we will get Shazam 2 before we get freaking Matt Reeves' Batman, whatever the hell thing.
Oh my God.
Actually,
Very true. Very true. I would not doubt that for a second.
no, I'm going to take that back because I forgot. Actually, after the movie's success, it has been announced that the Black Adam movie that The Rock is slated for, that's coming first.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was kind of wondering where he was in this one.
Yeah, well, he was a producer. That's about it.
Isn't that all we heard for years? All we ever heard was Shazam and with The Rock as Black Adam. Didn't hear anything else other than that forever. Then the movie comes out, and the one thing we don't have is The Rock as Black Adam.
To the movie's better, honestly. It really, really needs to stand alone because this is definitely a case where you don't open with the strongest villain. It's a mistake that a lot of movies make. You should really hold off. This is the villain that you want. And this is the villain you save for the right moment. Because now the stakes are raised.
Agreed. You're right. And I think you sort of alluded to this before. It's better to start smaller so you have somewhere to go.
You've run from foster homes in 6 counties.
I can take care of myself.
When you're 18, give these people a chance, because that's what they're giving you.
This is Billy Batson. Make sure you make him feel at home.
They seem nice, but don't buy it. It gets real Game of Thrones around here. Dude, just messing around. You look at me and you're like, why so dark? You're a disabled foster kid. You've got it all.
If you could have one superpower, what would you pick?
Everybody chooses flight. You know why?
So they can fly away from this conversation?
No, because heroes fly.
What, you need your fake family to stand up for you? Hey! Man, sorry about that. Go, go, go! Grab it! Get out the way!
Billy Batson. I choose you.
And speaking of wholesome, we need some whole numbers. That was terrible. I'm sorry. But yes, we're at that part. We're at that part of the show, ladies and gentlemen, where it's time for Joe and I to give our scores. We score out of 10 for those who are watching on the videos. Joe, Shazam! Out of 10.
Out of 10, I think this is a solid 8. And I kind of stand by what I said before about how I think they were swinging for a double and ended up stealing a triple. I feel like this is a very, very solid film. I think it's a nice little surprise for people who just kind of don't want to be bombarded with, this is so deadly serious and everything is awful. I think it was great. I enjoyed the hell out of it. There's a part of me that wants to give it even higher than an 8. But again, I feel like the 9s and the 10s are reserved for the more epic movies. I go back to the original Superman. I feel like, again, I still sort of go back to the original Christopher Reeve Superman as being kind of the standard. And that one, again, the tone was similar. And I think Shazam gets it right. But that the Superman had more of an epic feel to it. Like it was his whole life story, Krypton, the plains of Kansas to the skyline of Metropolis. Here is a much simpler, more tightly contained little story. And again, it does what it does well. It's got all the right elements. It's got heart. You can't take that from this film. It's got heart and soul and a sense of family. Again, the core of this film is family. That's what this film is about. So with that in mind, I think I give it all the accolades, and I think it's a solid high 8. Go see it.
For me, I don't have such qualms about the 9s or the 10s, to be perfectly honest with you. I can go either way with them. I like to score the movie for as it is. And when I watch this movie, when I think about this movie, I'm just happy. I'm glad that DC is actually making movies where they're no longer ashamed of the fact that they're making comic book movies for whatever reason. I liked all the performances. All the tiny characters had great moments in the sun. I liked how it skirted the line between being overly violent, but not really, and overly sexualized, but not really. I liked the characterizations. I liked how the story progressed. I loved the tone and the theme. I really enjoyed this movie a hell of a lot more than I really thought I was going to. And I didn't go in with like low expectations. I thought this was going to still be a fun movie, but I was kind of surprised, much in the way like when I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, which I knew I was going to like, but then was surprised at the depth of emotion that it pulled out of me. There's a scene in that movie where Billy finds his mother that is a knife to the gut. It is such a knife to the gut. You saw it coming. You knew that there was something like that going on. It was telegraphed. It really, really was telegraphed. But when it played out, it crushed me. And I will always give credit to any movie that can give me an emotional reaction like that. Making me feel excited and stuff like that is almost simple. But to have a scene like that play out, where the actor and the woman that was playing his mother played that scene just so well that it hurt me, that's a really good sign of a good movie. That's high quality there for a comic book movie. Grab me by the heartstrings in any movie, and I'm going to give you a 9, which is what I gave this movie. I really had a good time with this movie. It's not perfect, but it is honest in its portrayal. It's honest with its characters. It's honest with its conditions. Frankly, even the tacit connection to the larger DC universe, it didn't really matter. You know, you could have even done without it. If it wasn't for the fact that Freddy's character was such a huge comic book fan, we could have done without it. But the fact that it still didn't hurt the movie. And they didn't get themselves hung up on those other movies. They just kind of sort of, acknowledge that they were there, kind of like the Marvel shows on Netflix, the former Marvel shows on Netflix, in a way. But it is a very complete movie in all aspects. And for that, I have to give it a better score than Captain Marvel, which is really the reason why I gave it a 9. Because I originally gave Captain Marvel an 8. I went back, but then I realized that this movie has so much more above Captain Marvel. And I shouldn't be comparing the two because they're not anywhere near the same type of characters, with the exception of the fact that, legally speaking, this was Shazam's first name originally. That's about the only reason I'm kind of doing that. I want to make sure that this movie gets the credit for not only being a fun adventure, for not only being a great romp and a family film, a family-friendly film, but managing to elicit great emotion when it comes to a lot of the scenes. And bravo to the entire team for that.
And I you know what? I am agreeing with you 100%. I do not argue with anything you just said. And I do kind of, in retrospect, that's a good point. I mean, we just did Captain Marvel, and I my official was an 8, but I later went back and said, I wish I gave it a 7.
So did I.
That is a 7 film, frankly.
Yeah.
And I think this is more of a high 8 film. And I agree with you. You're absolutely right. It's well done. It grabs your heartstrings, and it plays them well. And I'm so glad you mentioned the part where he goes to meet his mother, because you're absolutely right. Anybody with any sense realized what was probably coming. So you were kind of like, oh, Billy, don't do it. You're not going to be happy. And it was executed perfectly well. I really like how they played that out. So I'm with you. Yeah, I agree with your assessment there.
Yeah. Please, if we haven't made it clear that we really enjoyed this movie by this point, well, then we've failed as reviewers, frankly.
Agreed.
But we didn't score it perfect. One of the rules that we have here at Rules Without Remorse, one of the rules we have here at Reviews Without Remorse, if we can't find something that we would change in a movie, that's almost always an instant 10. We didn't give 10s here. So that brings up the question. Joe, who asked you?
Yeah, who asked me? I honestly, there's a part of me that, and I don't know, as opposed to just finding one thing in the film that I would tweak or do differently. I think just sort of the overall tone is where I'm going to kind of go with this. And again, like I said, I think the only thing that really keeps it from being a more epic film is the fact that they do kind of go for a lighthearted comedy. And there's a part of me that says, well, you can't say that, because if you look at this as a DC film, this was absolutely the course correction that this franchise desperately needed. And, you know, film goers are crying out saying, could you just give us something that's fun and enjoyable with characters we like? And that was what they heard, and that's what they gave us. So, again, there's a part of me that's like, can't have your cake and eat it too, dude. But I do sort of say, on the other hand, maybe I would have liked something. And again, this is probably from a kid that grew up on Captain Marvel on TV.
That show was awesome.
And of course, when you watch it as a kid, you think this is perfectly believable. This is real life, whatever. So I kind of feel like maybe something a little more grounded would have helped to notch it up just a little bit higher. As it is, it's a great movie. I love when a movie sets out to do what it wants to do. Again, it makes a promise, and either it delivers or it doesn't. This one delivers in spades. It really did tell you from the beginning this is going to be fun and you're going to enjoy it, and that's exactly what it is. So, okay, but in terms of what kept it for me from being a 9 or a 10, is that something just a little more grounded really might have elevated the film a little more.
You know what, dude? I don't have a complaint about that. I think you're right. I think that there is something to be said, just maybe a smidgen more groundedness to the story. For me, and I've already mentioned it actually, so this will be very, very brief. I really, really wish that the director had allowed, or whatever the situation may be, where Zachary Levi had worked with young Billy Batson, and the two of them worked out their character together. So this way, it wouldn't be such a jarring transition. The physical transformation is enough of a jarring transition. Had he kept the personality of young Billy Batson, it would have been perfect as far as I'm concerned. You know, being a little excitable because holy smokes, I don't even know how to go to the bathroom in this thing. A very legitimate question, by the way. But, you know, that's fine. There's something to be said about that. But then he's doing things like, at one point they're trying to do a test, and he's doing the floss dance. Now, you know, that thing where he's kind of like dancing, and he's like, oh, shoot, he realizes, okay?
Right.
They have not given any indication that he does any of that type of thing, and there he is doing it. It just kind of was a little jarring to me. I understand that it was like, oh, look, we want to remind everybody that he's a 15-year-old boy. It's like, you could have done it just with the two actors syncing up, you know. That's all. It's really a minor complaint, and I hope that they do something about it in the future movies, because it's really the only thing that I would have changed if I had been directing.
I'm with you there. I agree with that wholeheartedly. And honestly, and the more you mention it, the more I'm like, yeah, that's very true. I mean, they really never showed this kid crack a smile, much less crack a joke.
Right.
You know, I mean, all we saw him do is bash somebody across the face with a crutch. Not exactly the type to be doing the dance. So yeah, you're right. I agree with you.
Yeah. And that's fine. They still could have had it, but they could have. There's ways they could have done it. You know. But you know, hindsight's 20/20, ladies and gentlemen. For your consideration, this one I loved. This is going back to my Doctor Strange review. For people who haven't watched it, you can or listen to it. Excuse me. Please check it out. One of the things I loved about Doctor Strange is how it ended in such an unconventional way for the comic book movies of its time. And I appreciated that so much. And here they do something similar. They introduced the Shazam family, and you had no clue it was coming. I don't care how savvy you were. I know this character a little bit, and I didn't see it coming. And when it came, I squirmed in my seat. I loved that part where he created the Shazam family. I loved it. It is my favorite thing to happen in this movie because it is such it was such a surprise. It could have been marketed that way. God, you got to figure like some PR people were like chopping at the bit to show off the multicultural Shazams and everything like that. And somebody, whoever you are, I want to kiss and marry you, said, no, it's a surprise. Thank you for that. Not only was it satisfying when it happened, but the fact that it wasn't spoiled before I went in, mwah, mwah, mwah. Beautiful.
Yeah, and I'm with you. And I, honestly, I'm struggling to think of anything other than that, quite frankly, because I agree with you, because I do say that was the strength of the film. And that was the magnificence of this film, is that they from the first frame, this film is about family. It's about bad families, good families, different families, and everything in between, frankly. Billy wishing for the other kind of family, not realizing how good the family here is, Dr. Zavana's terrible family, and then, of course, the Shazam family. So it really does explore every avenue of family and redefine what family is.
Exactly. In a nice way.
Exactly. So that to me is that's for your consideration. This is a film about family. The superhero part is secondary, and that's what makes it a great film.
That's what makes a great superhero movie in general. You have to have a theme and a story that just contains superheroes. It's like sci-fi. If you're so focused on the sci-fi and not paying attention to the characters and the story, you're not doing a good movie. This movie remembered it was characters first and moved the story around that and did it beautifully.
Agreed.
Shazam. My goodness, the 2019 movie marathon for us actually seeing the movies in the theaters is just on a roll, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. I would agree with that. We've seen some great stuff this year so far.
Yep. Yes, indeed we have. But, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to fall into a bit of a black hole next week. Or should I say a green hole? We're going to go back to the first attempt to do a Hulk movie by Ang Lee called Hulk with Eric Bana.
This is going to be weird because we've got, it's interesting because we're sort of straddling two series, sort of, because we're doing the Hulk that is not in the Marvel Universe, but then we're doing the Incredible Hulk, which is in the Marvel Universe, which still kind of is a sequel to the other Hulk.
Kind of, sort of, yes.
And then we're going to roll into Avengers Endgame. I can't believe it's almost here.
I can't believe it's almost here, too. You know what? By the way, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just going to warn everybody right now. Avengers Endgame is having its premiere April the 24th. So my recommendation to you is, starting April the 23rd, stay off the internet.
Pretty much, yeah.
Because there are jerks out there, man. That's what I'm doing. I'm not going anywhere until I see it. And I've already gotten my tickets for that, by the way.
That's usually right around when I do a YouTube starvation diet. I just I fast from YouTube for a good couple of days.
Yeah, no kidding. For me, it's YouTube and Reddit. But yes, so next week we will do the Hulk, the week after the Incredible Hulk, and as Joe said, we're coming up on Infinity War, and it's just... So.
All right. My friend, another good one.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Great movie, great show.
Great.
So until next week, have a good night, ladies and gentlemen.
See you next week. Thanks for listening to the Reviews Without Remorse podcast with Joe and Dave. Join us here every Thursday for a new episode. And be sure to check out the Reviews Without Remorse channel on YouTube for spoiler-free reviews of new releases. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider becoming a patron. You can find our page on patreon.com. As little as $1 a month goes a long way. All clips in this podcast are used for commentary and critique, and is considered fair use. No copyright infringement is intended.
Freddy, check this out.
Shazam! That's awesome, Billy. You can turn into a full-grown middle-aged man.
I know, right? Plus, I've got the wisdom of Solomon, the strength of Hercules, the powers of...
Yeah, cool. Can you buy a beer?
6 bags of jerky, nachos, 3 hot dogs, pound of licorice, 14 candy bars, air freshener, and I'm gonna need a CID for the beer, son.
Ah, dang. Looks like I left it in my other onesie.
Shazam!
I've got super strength!
Okay.
Hey, that's my car!
Your meter was expired. Smash! Bullet immunity!
Crotch kick!
That, however, is still unpleasant. And lightning power!
Whoa! My Wi-Fi's out! Oh no, my stories!
I might need to work on my control. You will sell me this beer.
I will not.
I'm scratching mind control from the powers list.
Yeah, I think so.
You gonna pay for that jerky?
Like I said, I just need to buy.
I'm pretty sure he's just getting his wallet.